I'm CK. Today we've got one from a company I haven't worked with before, MZourack. This is their Diktaat. It is a performance-oriented trigger sequencer, so it'll generate rhythm patterns for you, but it's not just set up a rhythm pattern and just let it play. It's got a lot of performance-oriented features too. Let's go over the key features. 4-channel performance-focused trigger sequencer. Playable interface, generates patterns on the fly. Create patterns with ratcheting probability and punch-in effects. Store and recall patterns. 16, 32, or 64 step patterns with the ability to chain them. Live mute controls for each channel, reset, and clock inputs and outputs to synchronize it with the rest of your rig. So that sounds like it could be pretty much fun to create dynamic rhythms on the fly and modify them and do neat things. We'll look at the parts, put it together, see if we learn anything, see how it sounds, and I hope you enjoy the video. The bag. Picked this up from thonk.co.uk as usual for my DIY module source, and I brought the build guide up already. Looks pretty decent. And MZourack, I don't know where they're from. Maybe it's on the back. Oh, they're from Prague in the Czech Republic. Okay, good. That was easy. And let's open the bag up. There's a pull tab, which I will mangle. Bunch of stuff inside. Pull it all out. Yep. Another sticker for my sticker wall. So it was made by MZourack, and he's got boutique devices from Czechia. And his shirt, he's got a little image of himself, and on his shirt is the phrase "You died," which means he is a Dark Souls fan, and having just completed Elden Ring, finally, took me a month, I can empathize with that. And here's a little tool quick sheet for when you're using it. But let's start taking a look at the circuit board and front panel. I'm gonna bet it has some surface mount pre-installed. Not sure. But let's look at the front panel first. Here we've got clock out and in. That's probably a button. It's labeled FN. That's probably function. Breakout, reset in, trigger outs, clear break, copy shred, fill probability, chain XFED. I assume that's crossfade. And then alt, which may be, well, that's not gonna, that's probably buttons. And we've got banks, because there are 4 banks of patterns. Looks like LEDs above them. So yeah, this is probably LEDs, and these are the buttons. Then we've got a record play switch, and when you hold down function, I'm going to assume you can get to divisions, length, tap tempo, and save. Then you've got a tempo slider. Looks like a bunch of LEDs to show you where you are in the pattern. Something here, I don't know what. That may be a spacer or support because it's got a ground plane on it. Reset, and in function mode, play pause, assign and range, mute and hold. So that all looks pretty straightforward. And this was, this board was for 2025, so it's this calendar year as I record this. And yeah, here we have a whole bunch of surface mount pre-installed. One thing I always double check when you see a electrolytic surface mount pre-installed, always check to make sure it wasn't knocked off one of its pads during shipping, because I've had that happen only once, but actually twice, because they're higher up than anything else, of course, and they can be dislodged. Someday we'll come up with a solution to not use electrolytics. And Diktaat PCB version 1.2, 8.24, okay. And he's got a GitHub repository for where you can look at the source that's going into, I think this is an Atmel. Yeah, it looks like an Atmel microprocessor there. And a bunch of other chips that I'll look at more closely later. Get rid of this stuff, and then let's take a look at what we're going to be soldering, which is going to, we've got some screws for the front panel to mount it on your rack. And here I assume this is jacks, switches, and a bunch of LEDs. Oops. And a couple of switch caps, or a number of switch caps, I should say a couple. Oh, we've got our slider. How does it feel? It's got an LED in it. It's okay. It's a little stiff at the full ends of travel, but not bad. Then we've got our performance keypads, so I assume we'll have some 6-position switches. Yeah. Oh no, those are locking switches. So that's probably not for these pads. Do these have a cross? These have a cross on them. So let me see if, oh, here we are. Here's our cherry type switches. And that will be our performance buttons. Boom, boom, boom. Very springy, very nice. As I said, a bunch of LEDs. Let's take a look at one of them. They're reds, so they will be on the low end of the forward voltage scale. And nothing too surprising about them, I assume. So let's put on the LED buddy. They look fine. 1.8 volt forward voltage, which is very low. Reds often are very low. I'm going to reverse the voltage just to see if it does anything. And it does not. It's only one way, single color. And here's a smaller red LED. Again, 1.8 volts. At a 5 volt input. Well, it should be at any input. Bunch of keycaps. And I don't know what that is. Maybe he has chosen to put a cap on the, yeah, it's a cap for the slider, so the LED will shine through this little translucent area. And then we've got a bunch of square switches, switch caps, and some spacers, and a bunch of jacks, and all these small tack switches. And again, there's this one locking switch. Where is it? Where did it go? Well, here it is. A locking switch, which I'm going to assume is going to go into, well, I'm not really sure. We'll find out. So that's all the bits and pieces. Looks like it's relatively straightforward to build. Shouldn't take too long, but it should sound pretty interesting when we get it done. I'll get the soldering iron heated up, and we'll put this thing together. Got the build guide up, even though I don't think we really need it, because we've got, because everything is pretty much standard placement, and there's no pots to worry about different values for, so we'll follow it anyway, because you may be following along too. And for, oh, there it is. No, interesting, they did not include, oh, they did include a power cable. I'm sorry, I missed it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the power connector on, and the red stripe goes there, so, and there's a mark there showing where the keyway goes, but we're going to double check that with a keyed power connector, and yes, the red stripe is where it says -12 red on the board. And we're not going to try and get it precisely placed right yet. We're going to do it like we usually do it, and the way the person who wrote the build guide does it, which is we're going to do one pin, and we're going to see that it's crooked, and that's okay, because I'm going to put my finger against it on the other side, reheat that solder point, and you might have heard it click a little bit. It was pretty quiet this time. and that gets it flat, and then we'll do the rest of these pins. Okay, so the LEDs that go behind the cherry switches, they're going to show through that little window that's right here. Now some cherries have you put, are designed so you put the LEDs through them. These are not. So we're going to put them flat on the board right now, and these are the small ones with one square end, and I should have 4 of them. That's 3, that's 4, and we're going to put them in correctly with the short leg going in the square hole, the cathode side. That's also the flat side, in case you might have inadvertently trimmed them. So we'll just set those all in. And we're going to solder these first, since they don't poke through the front panel, as we were just saying. So I'll hold them by the leads on the back and set them down flat. And I think I need another piece of solder. Another 1.5 foot of solder or so. And just like the power connector, I'm not going to worry about the orientation right this second. I'm just going to solder one leg of each, and while I'm doing this, you may be able to see that there are a number of resistors very close, surface mount resistors, very close to where you're soldering, and you just don't want to touch the already mounted surface mount resistors with your soldering iron tip, or you could knock them loose. And you might not even notice it, and that becomes a real troubleshooting nightmare in the future, because you can't see that you might have dislodged a surface mount component. Man, he goes very, very detailed, which is nice if you haven't done this before. And now we're going to put the spacers on. That's what these are for. Got 1, 2, and I don't know, we've got a couple of, I think these are all, yeah, these are all flathead screws. Okay, makes it easier. Put that in there like that. And they don't have to be gorilla tight, they're just holding things in place. Of course, if you're going to take this, put it in a mobile skiff and take it out to clubs and so on, you'll want them snug down more than I'm doing, and you may even want to use some Loctite or other type of thread locking liquid to make sure they don't shake loose. Now we're going to put all the micro switches on board, and they don't care about their orientation. In other words, there's no positive negative side. However, they are rectangular with one side or 2 sides longer than the other 2. So if they're not going on quite right, you probably don't have them oriented correctly. Just rotate them 90 degrees and they'll click right on in. We're not going to solder these yet. Give them all one more push to make sure they're all fully seated. This one wasn't. Okay, that's those fellas. And now we're going to use the locking switch, which goes here. And as you might notice, there's a very small dot here at the top of the outline, and there is a very small ridge right here on the switch, and that makes sure you're oriented correctly. because these do care how they go in. Double checking that, double checked. Put the fader on the board, and fader's got 4 pins on one end, 2 pins on the other end. Easy to see what we're doing. Okay, now we're going to put all the jacks in, and some of the jacks share a ground pin, so just be prepared for that. And this one's got a slightly offset ground pin because we're going to drop, looks like we're going to drop an LED in next to it. But I'm going to do, oh good, sometimes when they use shared pins, the hole is the same size as if they're not sharing pins, and that can be a bit of a pain. But this hole is a little bit outsized to allow us to easily share a pin hole. And again, nothing is soldered for a while because we're going to put the front panel on after we get all the parts placed to make sure everything is coming through correctly. Even though the pin's a little oversized, it's still a tiny bit of a pain to push the other pin out of the way while you're dropping the new one in, but not bad. These are going in really well. Thank you, whatever software this developer did to make these pins, these pinholes or holes just perfect. These are a little cattywampus. The spring tension from the ground pin is keeping them a little particularly because they're fighting against each other. So when we put the front panel on, we got to be aware we're going to be fussing and mussing with that a little bit. Now we're going to put the rest of the LEDs, drop them in their appropriate holes, and again, square hole on the circuit board takes the short leg, the cathode leg of the LED. And we'll do a sanity check on the placement later, once we've got the front panel on. Oh, now he wants to... Oh, okay. I'm just looking ahead to make sure what he's doing. Because now, before we put the cherry switches in, we want to put the front panel on, which is fine. Gosh, he really has a very detailed build guide. It's very nice. If you've never done one of these before, if you've never done a module before, you will be very happy to do this one. And now we're going to put the front panel on. And again, we're going to be mussing. Oop, my hair's got... Get off there. We're going to be mussing about with the sockets because they don't want to go straight. So take our little pointy thing, get everything arranged. There, you heard it click in. And that button is a little off, so to keep everything in place for right now, instead of using my little clamp like I often do for this, I'm going to use the screws that go into these spacers. Easy as 3.1416. Or, as you might say, easy as pie. Okay. That's snug. Nothing's rattling. Now I'm going to do what I said and do a little sanity check on the LEDs, because on the bottom row, for example, all the legs should be in the same orientation, and on this row too. So they are all in the same orientation. That's very good. And okay, that's what he's going to do too. Okay. Okay, we're going to do one thing that, again, he follows procedure. It's very close to what I usually do, which is nice. So now I am going to use this clamp up top. This is a Wolfcraft clamp I picked up from Home Depot. And what we're making sure of is we're making sure that the front panel is tight against these jacks. And with that in mind, we're going to solder one jack on this side and one jack on this side. And I'm omitting the offset ground pin there for just right now. I just have to remember I did that. Now, those two sockets that I just soldered, I'm going to put the panel nut on them. And he has a handy-dandy 3D printed tool he built that he shows here to screw these down with. I don't think he included it. I don't see it anywhere. So I will just use my, 8mm socket, snug them down. So now, everything's in place, nothing's going anywhere, it's all good. And again, I'm trying to, okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make sure that the LED, we don't want the LEDs going all the way through the panel, because then they stick out like that, and you might not want that. So, as he describes in what, if you've watched my other videos, you've seen me do, I'm going to take a little masking tape, 7-day tape, painter's tape, whatever you want to call it, put it over the LED holes, because that will end up keeping the LEDs flush with the front panel. So now we're going to push them all through their holes. Don't push too hard or else you'll... Now, two things. One, you can once again check to make sure you have all the short legs where they should be, and you also can check to make sure they're all flat. They're all level with each other, because that means they're all the same depth into their holes. Okay, we're doing it in stages, and again, that's not what I might do if I weren't doing a video, but I want to follow the build guide as much as possible for y'all's sake. So we're going to solder one leg of each LED, like we did before. And all the LEDs have one leg soldered, so we can pull the tape off. And we're pulling the tape off at this point, so we can double check. Oh, see this one I did not have tape on, because I didn't think about it. So as you can see, it's protruding quite a bit. And that's why we only did one leg. Because just like before, we can reheat that, use our finger, and press N, now it's flush. Now I'm going to solder all the LEDs and trim the legs off, but aren't going to learn anything by watching me do that. And my top camera, overhead camera battery is near dead, so I'm going to turn this off, swap batteries, and solder all the legs while we're off camera. We're back. All the LEDs are soldered. A couple of things to mention. First, as you solder the LEDs, if you don't solder every day like I do, You may want to trim the legs off as you solder them because you can be in a forest of legs trying to maneuver your soldering iron around. That can be a bit of a pain. Now he also notes that this LED leg and this ground pin, those pads are connected, so don't worry if you flow a little solder over them. That's the only place that's true, but just be prepared for that. Next, he wants us to... What does he want us to do? He wants us to put all the switch caps on. They're square holes, and you put them through, feel around, and give them a little push to get them seated. And then you can give them a little clicky test. They work fine, so I'm going to put a whole bunch of these on, and some of them, like I can see this one, where's my pointy thing? There it is. This one got a little out of, I must have pushed on the legs accidentally behind it. So just make sure they're aligned with the holes above them. And we'll put all the rest of the keycaps on. I'll go into fast motion and no commentary while I do that. Oh, and I'll come back live now for a second. Give you one little hint. If you don't have something to push them flat with, just take the other side and go down through the hole, and you can push on the cap to seat it very well. Then you can also, when you put it on there, rotate it a little bit and you'll feel when it catches the edges of the switch. Now all the switches, the push buttons, should be at the same level. And while you're here, go ahead and give them, I made a mistake. This LED, I didn't notice, didn't go all the way through. That's okay. I'll still be able to see it, but that was a rookie mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But that's okay. Check all the switches to make sure they're all clicky. They are. And I can't take it apart to fix that LED because I already soldered it. But that's okay. I can see it. I will be able to see it. Now we're going to put all the jacks, screws, or paddle nuts on. And now we're going to solder everything that we don't have soldered yet. So once again, we're going to push, except I'm not going to do this switch quite yet. We'll talk about that when I come back. But I'm pushing them all down to make sure they're all completely through. And again, I'm going to ignore this area right here for right now. That's all those. We also haven't done the fader yet either. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to see what he says about it because I know what I will say about it. The fader is loose, as you can see. It doesn't have any, it's not firmly against the front panel, so we will set it down on its handle with the handle in the middle, and we'll do similar to what we did with a couple other components. We'll solder one pin, pick it up, press it firmly down to make sure it is completely flat, and it is. And now we'll do the other pins on that. And now we'll put the locking push button switch on, cap on, like so. Click, 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 click. And same thing, we're going to make sure that's fully flat on the board. It doesn't lay down quite well, so I'm going to put a little piece of foam there to support it. But we're going to do Similar thing to what we've already done. Just solder one pin, pick it back up, make sure it clicks well. That's fully seated. And that's all of those on board. I'm not going to put the fader cap on yet. I'm wetting my solder pad. Okay, double check, double check. Now we're going to put the cherry caps on, and he 3D printed a little jig for himself to hold these all in place. We do not have that, so we're just going to set them in there, and I think we can flip the board over. These are indexed, so it would be extremely difficult to get them wrong. So with those in place, we need to flip it over. So we will put a little card here. And I'm also, because as you can see, the fader handle is above. So as I flip this over, I'm going to put it on my solder pad with the fader panel hanging off the edge. Oh, but then this other switch is there. Yeah, okay. So that goes on well enough. And I'll just, this one's not fully in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push down with my index finger here, move my coffee cup for a minute, find out where I put my solder, and same drill. We're going to do one pin on each. This one is not, I know this one's not right. And we'll pick it up and see this one's all crooked. But that's okay, because we just heat up that one pin again and seat it, and it is correctly seated. All gorgeous. And do that for all the ones just to make sure they're all perfectly flat. Double check our work. They all look good. So we'll solder the rest of those pins. And that's all those fellas. And I'm going through all the rest of this. Yep. Oh, and one thing, we do have a little heatsink area here for this voltage regulator, I think, or transistor. I'm not sure what it is. I can't see the part number. Can't tell what the part number is. Be careful not to get solder on that. And of course, careful of all the other resistors. Now, we'll put the switch caps all on. And look at them, and you can see they're all in the same plane. And then put the slider cap on. And there we go. That's all the bits and pieces. The only flub I made, which is irritating to me, I shouldn't have done that. I didn't get that LED all the way through, but again, we can see it, so I'm not too worried about it. It's just for the pattern banks. And that's it. That's the build. Here's the front. Here's the side. The back. The other side. The top. And the bottom. Now we'll put some power to it and see what we're going, see what we can do with it. Okay, I'm going to go check, see what else he has to say. Oh, the module needs to be reset into factory state at least once to perform the factory reset. Okay, we'll do that when we turn it on. And he does have a firmware update for this. I'm probably not going to apply that because we'll just see what happens. It should work just fine the way it is. So I'm not even going to take a little break here. I'm going to bring this Bifaco Chica Power benchtop power in and we'll connect our cabling to that. Get the solder pad out of the way and go over to over here. And I got a snare drum module from MKI and Erica Synths. Plug that in. Turn on my little amp. Plug that into output. Sorry for the crossfade there. I got halfway through that demo, looked up at my cameras, and saw that they had timed out. So in the interim, I put the unit inside my little workbench breakout box, and I've got a hi-hat and a snare and an LFO to play with, and I've got a mixer over here because I didn't have space for it, because I didn't make this that big, because it's not supposed to be that big. So let's just start off with the basic stuff. Let me turn up my little amp. And you can hear the patterns. This is pattern 1 to the hi-hat. This is to the snare. Let me change the snare a little bit. Let me turn that up in the mix. Turn that down a little bit. Turn that up a little bit. There we go. And as you can see the lights flashing on the buttons. Where is my pointy thing? I'll use a screwdriver. And as normal, you can just tap a little bit. Let me turn off the snare for a minute. So you can see, you can tap along with it. Let me put the snare back in. We'll try the second pattern in bank 1. Third pattern. Fourth pattern. Oh, and by the way, I'm all with this button out. It's in play mode, not record mode. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. You have to press function to pause, which is okay. I mean, I guess that's okay. I don't really know. Never mind what I was going to say. Now, the tempo slider does not work just by sliding it. You have to press function, which makes sense because if you're out there and you're playing with these buttons, you don't want to bang against this and accidentally change the tempo. So you press function. Now you can hear it's much faster. Slow it down again. I'm going to change banks to bank 2. And that's pattern 1 on bank 2. Pattern 4 on bank 2. So that all works well. I'm going to switch back to bank 1. Now we can press our, I forget which one is which. Okay, now we're in break. Let's see what happens when we press break. Maybe doing the wrong thing. Might be a slight pause here while I figure out how to do break. Oh, okay. So I'm in break. Now when I press one of the pads, it just loops that pattern. So if we do it for the over here, now we'll try shred and shred. Mash the tracks against each other, driving rhythms. So when we went into shred, now we do this. That's the master track. Oh, I have to do this. Now we'll hit this, the right track, because now those are the two that are being matched against each other. Oh, we'll double tap this and it'll shred against the other three. Double tap this and that'll shred against all three. Double tap that and nothing happens. Let's do probabilistic. Okay, so we're going to set global probability with this, so fully to the right, skipping and adding. When moving right increases the chance that recorded triggers will be skipped, but also new triggers will appear. So I don't see, oh, we're activating it per track. Now we got it. Now it's doing some skipping. Skip and adding. Now we'll go back to the other side and that's simply skipping. And you can hear that it's skipping some of them. Then back to the middle where it's covering everything again. Then crossfade, a performance tool which makes the fader behave like a mixer. Pattern that's active when X-fade tool is selected becomes the left pattern. So we'll just make that. Oh, and then we select the track it's being bounced again with the pattern button. Oh, and we change how it switches over with the slider. It's acting like it doesn't have anything there. Okay, I may not understand this completely. Okay, now we've got both of them going. It should crossfade. That just seemed like it dimmed it out. Let me try this again. Okay, X-fade's active, so we're going to select pattern 2 as the crossfader. So it's fading across. Okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure I'm really going to use that. There's another break. What else is interesting in playback? There's reset, but we don't care about reset. So I can mute a track, mute and hold that, or press and hold that, and that hi-hat track comes out. We'll bring it back. That's easy. And then we can do assignment for various buttons. And so for length, where's length? Where is length? Oh, okay. So while I hold function, I can change the pattern lengths. So they don't seem to have anything that far back. I haven't recorded anything that far back. So we'll go back to, that should put us at 64 and that should put us back at 16. There we are. Oh, and we can do a tap tempo here. So we'll tap the tempo button. That's really interesting. Well, let's see what happens when I move the slider with that. Remember, you have to press the function. That works fine. And then there's a whole bunch of advanced functions that I'm not going to get into, nor am I going to play with recording and playback, because you can fiddle with that yourself. It makes, well, we can go ahead and try, let's try fill. I'm going to scroll back up to record and see what fill does. Okay, so let's go into record mode. So that button's up, and we're going to go to fill, turn that on, and now we press and hold one of the backlit buttons. So that's doing a fill. You hear it filled in. I'm going to do some on the snare. So you can see how that works. Then there's clear and copy and chain if you want to chain sequences together, but I'm not going to get into that. One other thing I'll show you here is I'll plug my LFO into clock in. Now it's going real slowly. It can go pretty fast. Now again, as it's all planned, let me get it to a good level. I can always tap. Actually, it's not. There we go. I'm sorry, it stopped for some reason or other. We'll go back to playing. Let me pull that out. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, I didn't cover chaining and recording sequences and saving everything, but those are simple button presses. So, as you saw, pretty straightforward to put together. And as you can see, you have to do a little learning to remember which buttons do which, and which needs the funk, and which needs the alt. You've got your little cheat sheet to go with you while you're on the road. But overall, good unit, and I'm actually quite pleased on the width of it. It's narrower than many of these type of drum pads, so that's pretty cool. And my first one from MZourack. Again, it looks like it's the only one he has available right yet, but looking forward to more from him. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the video.